Welcome to this meeting of the Willoughby East Lake City Schools Board of Education. It is Monday, November 17th, 2018. It's about 6:34 p.m. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Paczynski is absent. Mrs. Warner?
Here.
And Mrs. Zern?
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. We're now going to adjourn to executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or other official. Could I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion to adjourn to executive session.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we move to executive session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes. We're going to move to executive session. It is 6:34 p.m. and we will be back. So I'm just looking for another motion. Thank you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second?
President,
Mrs. Zern. Oh, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Thank you. We are reconvened. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Parkinson, are there any willing who would like to speak?
No, Mrs. Warner.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson introduced our guest, or is that where I am? Yeah.
Okay, first off, we have Jessica Leopold, who is working on her certificate in Gifted, and she's with her trusted partner, Allison Soferno, who's her mentor, actually. So Jessica is going to give us a quick update on Gifted Services.
Hi, my name is Jessica Leopold. I'm a teacher at North High School. I'm getting my master's in gifted education, and I am presenting for a class assignment. So I will be presenting on gifted services in the Willoughby East Lake Schools. So first, I'm going to be talking about characteristics of giftedness, but this is not an inclusive list. There are many more characteristics that are not on this slide. So first, we have cognitive characteristics, which is also known as academic characteristics. So some of those characteristics are these students are interested in problem solving and applying concepts. Usually if you are gifted, then you are an early reader and they're very intellectually curious. And next we have affective characteristics, and these are also known as emotional characteristics. So these students have an unusual emotional depth and intensity. These students are also sensitive and empathetic to others and their feelings. And then another characteristic is they have high expectations of themselves and others, which at times can lead to frustration. So we also have resources, and partners that help with giftedness in Willoughby East Lake. So first we have College Board, and College Board helps with AP classes and tests. Then we have the Ohio Association of Gifted Children. We have a local group for that. We have social media. And then the School of Innovation, these are some of their partners that they work with. They work with Avery Dennison, Hope. They are currently working with the Lake County Water and Soil, and they also partner with Kent State. Some of the programs we offer in Willoughby East Lake for gifted is they have early entrance to education, or kindergarten, sorry, and they have to go through an application process. And we have cluster grouping that happens in the elementary grades. So that is when the gifted students can get into groups sometimes together in the regular classroom. Then we have a whole subject or grade acceleration. So for instance, that would be like a 3rd grader taking a 4th grade level math class. Then other programs we offer AP classes and honors classes in the high school, and honors classes can also be taken in the middle school. And then lastly, we have the School of Innovation. So the School of Innovation, you have to be identified in superior cognitive ability and identification in reading and math. And then if there are any other open slots, they go through a lottery process. And then we also wanted to talk about college credit plus versus advanced placement, because a lot of the times people don't know the difference. So college credit, students can take classes at Lakeland, other colleges, or currently at the high school through a certified teacher. This is not always accepted out of Ohio State schools though, because it is an Ohio program. Advanced placement is more nationally standardized because it is through the College Board and it is like a national test. We have upcoming meetings that will help service the gifted. So we have the Parent Info Night for Soy on Wednesday, January 16th at 6:30. We have 2 college credit plus and advanced options night. We have one at South, that's Wednesday, January 30th at 6:30. And we have one at North, Monday, February 11th. And then we have a cluster parent meeting, and that's early May and mid-August. And then lastly, we have state and national organizations. So if parents, staff, or community members had any questions about giftedness, each of these organizations has their own website. So they have the Ohio Association for Gifted Children, there's the National Association of Gifted Children, and Northwestern University's Midwest Academic Talent Search. So that's my presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I don't qualify as gifted, but if I get a gift, does that make me gifted? That's as close as I can get it.
You have to be identified, and our school doesn't do the code yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
In
don't,
2nd grade.
so I have no hope.
You can keep retesting every year.
Okay.
Good
There's hope
answer,
then.
right?
Does anybody have any other questions? No, thank you. Thank you for
Sincerely, you did a really good job, Jessica. If you were nervous, you couldn't tell, so
Thank you.
nicely done.
Oh, thanks.
Our next presentation, we have 4 administrators from both Edison and Grant. And from Grant, it's Principal Mike Samber. Nancy Trace is the assistant. And then from Edison Elementary, the principal is Jatina Threet, and her assistant is Gina Brown. And they will be giving you an update on our strategic plan as they've been moving forward in their respective buildings.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jatina Threet, principal of Edison Elementary School.
I'm Mike Samber, the principal of Grant Elementary School.
I'm Nancy Trace, the assistant principal at Grant Elementary.
I'm Gina Brown, the assistant principal at Edison Elementary.
As you can see, our order in which we introduced is probably wrong.
First of all, we'd like to thank the board for letting us come here tonight to discuss the district focus for the elementary buildings, specifically at Grant and Edison. Our focus this year is just like our every year is to improve student achievement, but also with that, we want to improve our state test scores and improve our state report cards both at our building level and at the district level. And we've identified 5 ways that we're gonna do that, and that is through standards-based pacing guides, that we've created, benchmark assessments, which have been created and implemented, instructional strategies that we're focusing on that are research-based and highly effective, classroom walkthroughs that our administrative team is conducting throughout our buildings, and an elementary tutoring program.
So, standards-based pacing guides, what are those? Standards-based pacing guides, first of all, they were created and with the curriculum department and teachers' involvement, and they are guides to help teachers teach the same standards at the same time. Okay, it provides them the opportunity, if I were to go into a classroom on today and Mike were to go into a classroom today, teachers should be teaching the same thing using those pacing guides. Those pacing guides correlate with benchmark assessments, which are the assessments that students get on a quarterly basis. They get it 3 quarters in a row, and then the 4th quarter we use air data as our benchmark. But those correlate with our pacing guides. Again, they're prioritized testing. They are consistent instruction amongst all grade levels, and we monitor when we do our walkthroughs in classrooms if teachers are teaching following that pacing guide.
So this year we are doing benchmark assessments, which are common assessments across our district. So these are given to students to take on a program called Illuminate, which is something we're using across the district. It's an online platform, and taken every quarter, and they are designed by teachers within our district on grade level committees through the curriculum department, and they are meant to match the rigor of the AAR assessments that students will be taking. So there'll be grades that are taking these tests in the elementary school are grades 3 through 5. And these committees have met with the curriculum department and will also be looking at the data. And so what's really great about these assessments is that the teachers can look at this data as a building in their classrooms and look at this, they're matched to specific standards. So the teachers can look at them in their classroom of what students are finding what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, and improve upon these in their own classroom as a grade level, as a building, and also as a district. So for an example, if they're looking at it as a district, if we find that across our district there's a measurement standard that is not being met, that shows a weakness in our district, we might look at it together and decide that we want to pull in some different resources to improve that across our district. So it just gives us a really great look across our district and our building.
Okay, so instructional strategies, we've been rolling out the implementation and training through our PD days, our professional development days. These research-based strategies are mainly centered on the work of Robert Marzano. And there's 9 strategies altogether. There's 5 that we've introduced formally so far. And those are reinforcing effort and providing recognition, which really focuses on having students understand the difference between effort and achievement, and really recognizing the effort that they make and celebrating the gains that they make in that effort. Non-linguistic representations would be having students model their knowledge and deepen their understanding in non-linguistic ways. So that would be like graphic organizers, that would be different ways of representing their information, either like acting it out, or doing picture representations or mental representations in order to remember what they're learning. Summarizing and note-taking, really just about, we use Cornell Notes, and different ways for students to just kind of keep track of that most important information. Identifying similarities and differences has been a big focus this school year, and for that, it's really not just about saying how things are alike and different, but really analyzing those differences in order to deepen understanding of concepts and to be able to connect with new information. And then generating and testing hypotheses sounds like a science thing, but really it's just about inquiry-based learning, getting kids to be curious, ask questions, take on a project, and and do some sort of self-guided learning. So through the work of these instructional strategies, we feel as though our students are going to be able to see gains in their achievement.
So with all of that being said, with instructional strategies, Marzano's instructional strategies, with our benchmark assessments and our pacing guides, what are we doing as administrators to make sure that this is being done with fidelity? Well, one of the ways we're doing it is through classroom walkthroughs. We collect data on what we see in the classrooms, but the 4 things that we're really, actually more than 4, but what we're really looking at is rigor. Are they teaching at the standards and pace of what an air test would be testing students on? Student engagement. What does student engagement looks like? Well, one good example is testing hypothesis, what we just spoke about. Are they really engaged in meaningful activity? Or are they just sitting there doing a worksheet? Okay, so we're really looking at, are students really engaged in doing things through these research-based strategies? And then again, instructional strategies. When we go into the classrooms, are we seeing the instructional strategies that we have been training our staff on and what is proven to work and raise student achievement? And then standards and pacing guides. When we go into the classroom, we have our pacing guides with us. We're looking at those pacing guides and we see where they should be on this day. And we're looking to make sure that they're teaching what they're supposed to be teaching. It builds accountability with our teachers because they know that this is what we're coming in to look at. This is what we're expecting. And the good thing about this is we can bring this data back and present this data to them in staff meetings so that they can see that this is what we're seeing when we come in and do our walkthroughs. It has no names associated with it, but it has data on these areas that we can show and let them know that, you know, we're low in percentage with rigor, for example. This is what we need to do to kick up that rigor. Not only is it good for staff meetings, but we can also look at it as building principles. We can come together when we meet as building principles and look at this data to see, you know, what areas are our teachers lacking in? You know, are we seeing that at Grant they're doing more student engagement, they're doing some different things with student engagement? We tell our teachers to talk to their colleagues about what they're doing, the strategies that they're doing that's raising achievement in their classrooms. We can do the same thing as administrators. What's working in your building? Let's talk about it. So that's how we can use this data.
So looking at our walkthrough data, one thing that we have focused on is our instructional strategy. So between our 2 buildings, we've done over 100 walkthroughs so far this year. And we've seen that in 1 out of every 4 walkthroughs, we have seen one of the instructional strategies that we rolled out as a district in those walkthroughs. And we feel really good about that because a lot of these have just been rolled out, and we feel that the more and more we continue to review these strategies and implement more, the other 4 that we haven't, that our staff will continue to buy in to these as they are very highly effective strategies for our students to be learning from. One other piece of data that we have looked at is our student engagement. So we've seen a lot of student engagement in our classrooms, but as Jatina talked about rigor, we want to make sure that what our students are engaged in is highly rigorous material so that it can match the state standards and the AIR assessment, you know, when we get to that. And we're kind of monitoring that throughout the year through our benchmark assessments. And as we just finished our first benchmark assessments for the first quarter, and we feel our students are engaged. We're going to look at that data to figure out is the rigor of that first quarter and with the engagement we're seeing matching to be able to produce those strong results for our students. So that's what 2 kind of data points that we wanted to share with you that we feel we're making improvement.
Our schools are also going to continue our elementary tutoring program, which is going to begin in February. And this again will be for students that are taking the AAR state assessment, so grades 3 through 5. And these students that will attend the program are academically at-risk students, which have been identified through data compiled from different district assessments, such as our math scores, our DIBELS, and past AAR assessments. And teachers in our district will be teaching these students and modeling, keeping these students in small groups and can really target using that data, what weaknesses, strengths these students have, working on those specific skills with the students and providing that practice for them. It will be for reading and math and supporting the classroom instruction. And it is no cost to parents, so that's free transportation, materials, parents don't have to pay for, and snacks even provided.
So we all can agree that learning and behavior goes hand in hand. And so we put this as a screen because we use with Fidelity PBIS in our building, positive behavioral incentives and supports. And it builds on positive behaviors. That's the biggest thing about it. And because of this, and because we have implemented this school-wide, so every teacher uses a PBIS chart that kids clip down and clip up when they have opportunity to clip back up should they clip down. That's the one positive thing about PBIS that wasn't the case a long time ago. We use it with Fidelity with all of our teachers in the building, and because of that, we have walkthroughs from the state that come in and do walkthroughs every year, and they audit us to make sure that we are implementing every component of PBIS. So we are happy to say that Edison and Grant received the Ohio PBIS Recognition Award for 2017, and we also received it for this year too. So we will be going down to Columbus after Thanksgiving to receive this award.
So in summary, with our district goal of raising student achievement, we just strongly feel as though if we keep a steadfast focus on these 5 things, standards-based pacing guides, using those benchmark assessments, implementing highly effective instructional strategies, continuing up with our classroom walkthroughs and making adjustments where needed there, and our elementary tutoring program, that we can raise our student achievement, which will in turn show as improved test scores as well. So thank you for allowing us to present, and we'd like to answer any questions if you have any.
Very impressed.
Yeah.
I think we're on the right track to improving, because if we get it down here, we'll get it up here. So awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job. Oh, yes, it's not my thing. Yes. This is a great time for you guys to leave, unless you want to stay.
If you want to stay, feel free, but
And you can't, so, because I'm assuming you're getting extra credit.
some kind of credit.
Yeah, you can't leave, you have to stay.
Lost the server connection.
I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the minutes from the meeting on October 8th, 2018.
Madam President?
Mr. Jones.
Madam President, I motion to approve item 2A, approval of minutes of October 8th, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Madam President, I second that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting October 8th, 2018. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Thompson, for 1 second before we go into Mr. Parkinson, or maybe 2 seconds, right, John?
Okay, we're going to make a skip because I don't want John and AECom to know all our financial business, so we want to get them out. Well,
anyway.
dang it, Beth! So we're going to go to the part to get an update. John Longina, did I say it right?
No.
Gosh, I even practiced. Longina. John, I just see your name on the emails all the time, but John's going to give us an update on the projects and all of those things.
Okay, no problem. Thanks for the introduction. So John Longina, project manager at UConn. I sit over at South High School on a day-to-day basis, and I help oversee all 3 projects for the company financially, a couple different aspects with our partnership with Green Space and Skate Variety. So just to we'll go through the slides, give a quick update. A lot of good things have been happening over the last month or so since I think Ben was here and presented. If you haven't noticed, it's pretty cold right now for November, so we're going to keep fighting through the cold. I think we're about 15 days in a row below average. And we've seen snow, sleet, rain. We're getting hit with everything, but the good news is we're going to continue to fight through it. We got a majority of the site work done that we wanted to with a lot of asphalt, base asphalt, to give us a good working surface this winter. So that's a major milestone for our phasing plan. And now we're really just pushing to get a lot of the envelope at least sealed up. It doesn't necessarily have to be done, but at least sealed up to allow us to continue to control the air and the environment inside. So we'll start over here at North High School. A couple things going on at the academic wings. We're just continuing to button up the steel, around 98%. Just a little bit of decking needs to go down. We're continuing with interior framing and some MEP rough-in from fire, mechanical, electrical. So that's at North. Here you see the kitchen, a lot of masonry is complete. The roofing's got about 2 days left on roofing, fire protection, and some other exterior framings going on. Over at the gym, again, you're going to see a lot of the similar things going on at all 3 with MEP rough-ins, a lot of framing, other than Longfellow, which is
MEP rough-ins.
Mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So that's your fire suppression, your plumbing lines, your electrical, not your lights, but all the conduit and the circuitry that allows it to turn on eventually. So basically everything we're doing right now you'll never see, unless something goes wrong and you get a leak, which we don't want to have. And a lot of concrete pours are being completed right now. We're getting close to being done with those. We've got 1 major pour left at North High School, the slab on deck of the second 2-story academic wing on the north side, which they're gearing up for the next week and a half. So here, this is, I apologize, some of the photos are a couple days dated. I believe this was last Thursday, and it looks a little different now today with more decking down and getting some exterior studs going. But this is your north side academic wing. So they're going to be pouring that slab on grade, or excuse me, slab on deck. I don't know if there's a laser. Yeah, this will be poured in the next week and a half. There's a better view of it. A little bit of a glare here, but this is when I say framing and MEP rough-in. So here's your electrical boxes. It's hard to see, but there's conduit up the wall to it. These are your metal framing that we'll eventually cover with drywall. Here's an open staircase here. So this is, then there's ductwork here. So this is like the guts and the infrastructure now inside the building for a top rate. Back side of your academic wing, so all your brick ties around, they'll start doing the spray foam insulation and continue to brick over the next several months.
They'll brick through the winter?
They can, yeah. There's just temporary closures, you get some bead, and you can continue to work through. So you see here, this is actually insulation, which they're starting to run brick, continuing up now. So this is moving along. This is area A, or excuse me, B. Performing Arts Center. So this is to the right of the main entrance, I believe. So right now there's some framing going on and just continuing to button up some of the details to allow roofing to go. Mason's over here in the corner running this wall up right now. Pretty muddy out there, but make sure you got your work boots on and work through it. So yeah, here's a good slab on grade pour that happened. So what that does, that allows us now to get lifts on to do a lot of the overhead work, also start laying out walls. So once you get your slabs, it opens up a lot of the trades to get in there and start working. Just another view of it from a different angle, different perspective. That's actually looking into your admin area, which all these walls are now built on the exterior and it's white sheathing, and they'll be framing here shortly. Yep, so this is all white now with sheathing. Back side of the building, brick veneer is complete. Now they'll just put in some plastic until the windows show up. Show the guys a little bit more. This is over in the auditorium. Getting a pour done. So that's all poured out. You can tell here it's finished. All right, moving on to the elementary school. A lot of things here now. We're actually What we're doing at North, Longfellow's a little bit ahead. It's a little bit smaller, so now we're going into what we call finishes, which is obviously your drywall finishing, your painting, casework, flooring here shortly. Really everything now that you're going to visually see as you're operating the building. While we are kind of putting the finishing touches on some of the MEP roofing and other parts of the building. Here, roofing. Roofing at Longfellow is complete. Now they'll just go back and they'll detail out the parapets with coping metal. Just another view. These aren't holes in the building. These get mechanical equipment on it. If not, they'll seal them up, or maybe a roof hatch, and whatnot. Again, more roofing. And off the chart, I believe this maybe we'll have to get the mason back up and do the brick that ties in over the flashing. So these are just a lot of the details we work through on a day-to-day basis. Here's a good view from the southwest corner. A lot of brick veneers done. They're finishing this up. Windows are in, so yeah, Longfellow's looking good. A lot of site concrete's done. Longfellow's looking great. Actually, yeah, big mechanical unit set here. Just another view of the brickwork. And this is what you see off Stevens. I've been hanging out south for too long. So yeah, so good thing we got storefronts going in and glass. And you may see and wonder why the doors aren't there. It's just you gotta wait for the hardware, but we're sealed in. Stairs are set. That's one set of probably 8. This is your kitchen equipment. So this is what we call the hood. So this is where all your kitchen, your griddles, your stove, and all that stuff will sit under here. So this will actually do a lot of the food prep. The gym. I was actually in there today. See, this was last Thursday. All the gym hoops, all the basketball hoops are set. So just in 3 days, they've set all the gym equipment. And now we're using it, it's painted, now we're using it as laid out. A view looking down the corridor. This is where they'll start. This is actually hard lid ceiling, which is drywall, versus your acoustical drop-in ceiling pads. So this is see here's the mud on the drywall, so this is now will be painted shortly. Got a couple vibrant blues and turquoise, and this is your casework setup. So really this finish the ceiling, drop in some light fixtures, grills, do the flooring and clean it, and you're done. So that's why a lot of work will start to happen, and trades working around each other. Big mechanical room, mechanical equipment set, it's just getting tied in. All right, so moving over to South High School. A lot of things here, same thing, we're finishing up the exterior with a lot of brickwork, a lot of metal panels, working on a lot of MEP rough-in. We have started drywall in the academic wing. We're going to have temporary heat next week. That's when we'll start to actually finish the drywall with mudding it. Our 8-week look ahead started to show painting already. So yeah, so we're going to be rolling into finishes here shortly. Our pre-engineered metal building's moving along great. We're close to wrapping that up. Now we're kind of holding him off just to allow some access in and out of the building. But you'll see here that we have a lot of track steel going down. A lot of the exterior envelopes basically buttoned up other than where we had to hold it off. And the pools are moving along about a month ahead of schedule with our excavation activities and whatnot. Ymca, we had a big pour out there today. We broke up the slab on graded 2 pours, and today was a successful day. And then the senior center, moving along fine. We're actually projecting that to be done hopefully late spring at this point. But they won't move in until the fall. So this is a view of South High School. Here's your main entrance. So we have a lot of temporary enclosures in. Right now we're set up, we're running brick here, get that completed over the next 4 weeks. And then glass for this corner is coming on Wednesday. So a lot of these windows are in. So that area is becoming sealed up.
So they'll install it on Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. And then about half the trades are going to work Friday, some may work Saturday. We're bagging it the day after holiday, so whoever we can get to show up to us is a win at that point. So, we asked maybe work a couple tens leading up, but it's tough because Wednesday after lunch, the mindset shifts to holiday mode. So you just
Yes,
got
it
to keep
does.
pushing and get what you can out of the guys.
Yeah, we don't do that here in Willoughby. Until 2015.
So a couple more weeks, we'll get this sealed up, and then this big curtain wall is probably December, late December. That'd be actually one of the last things we'll put in, because we're using it for a lot of in and out material deliveries. This is just a typical classroom. As you can see, we have drywall, windows are in. Other than these are operable vents, so that means you unlatch it, open it up a little couple inches. Those are ready, but we have other stuff to put in since we're temped in. This is a look down the corridor of the academic wing. It actually does have a nice little curvature to it. So this is the first floor. This is the second floor. So this is what the second floor will look like in a couple weeks. So it's basically carrying area 1, first floor, all the way up to second floor. So now, just a couple of weeks or more, we're going to be. This is a lot of interior plumbing rough-in, so this is a group restroom. So right now, the mason, he'll start moving in and running the block walls. This is a view looking down at the student dining area. So right here, you can't tell, but there's going to be these collaborative open seating areas. So you'll be able to get up to that second story. And then this is a nice student dining. And then our back-of-house kitchen, we're just wrapping that up right now. This is the field house. You can see here this track steel that cantilevers over that wall is set. So we'll be messing around with the track for the next 4 to 5 weeks until we get it poured and get all the guardrail systems out the way it has to go. It's a little finicky and will take some time, but we're finishing up these metal panels. After this block wall will be done.
Is that a concrete slab all the way around?
So this is all
track?
concrete.
No, I mean the base of the track.
Yes. Yep. So you get metal decking and then you pour concrete on top of it. But the guardrail, the way the guardrail secures, there's actually, not to bore you, but there's rebar that extends in like 3 or 4 feet, so you have to set it first. A lot of welding, which just all these welds take time, they need to get inspected and whatnot. So the field house, it's actually coming along relatively well. This is the competition pool. So all the panels are up, the gutter's in. So now we're just scratching in a little electrical, and hopefully over the next month, 6, 8 weeks, we'll pour all the steel. We got to get this mezzanine that overlooks the pool done first. So pool areas are moving along on schedule. This is the Ymca slab on grade, which actually half of it's already poured today. And we'll pour the other half on Wednesday. So they will be working all day. At least the 2 guys that have to stay all night and finish it and cut it. They were actually just leaving when I was leaving the site. This is a look at the Ymca. So these white panels actually carry through the field house. View of the senior center. These windows are scheduled to start to show up actually Wednesday. Then we'll start drywall delivery 1st of December. That's just a view of the Y. It's a little bit different type of construction. All right, Board of Ed. That's a couple more weeks and you guys are in. So I know another 2 weeks, Mike's going to be working. Just a lot of finishes are going on. The roofing got buttoned up. Had 6 guys there today tightening it up. Big mechanical unit was set today. We saw the crane over there. Your casework's in. These ceiling pads are starting to get dropped. Some final inspections. Flooring's in. Windows are in. The building's painted. Actually looks great, I think. It just stands out now. Interior work. More casework, drywall paint. So really, I think Pat and his group are lined up first week of December, start to get a lot of the IT equipment turned over. The following week, get the furniture in, and mid-December-ish, start to really operate out of here shortly. So this gives you an idea of what's been going on at the board. Okay. First floor windows, a lot of new storefront framing and glass. So yeah, so a lot of things have been happening. You start to see a lot of the same things happening in L3, which is good. Any questions?
Still project to be on time, on budget?
On time, on budget, yep. Work through this winter, we'll get through it. I think it's going to be a cold one. This is what we're seeing right now. We got very lucky last fall. If you remember, it was very mild, and even winter, pretty mild.
Farmers Almanac says mild, so let's go with that.
I hope so.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
And you may also run up back to him. If you have anything else
I'll
to
read the
do.
meeting minutes. I mean, it's not like we even have a lot of meetings.
No.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The first item for your consideration is the financial report ending October 31st. Information can be found under Exhibit A. Next item for your consideration is the amended appropriations through October 31st. All that information could be under item B. Item C, the amended certificate of estimated resources, which is sent to the county auditor's office. All that information can be found under C. Item D for your consideration requires a separate vote, and if I may, Mr. Riley, the district attorney, made just 2 minor changes in the settlement agreement that he has that he'd like us to change. The very first sentence, this settlement agreement is dated October 15, 2018. I believe the one that's on the agenda says November 19th. If we can change that back to October 15th. And then the last item, under item 1, settlement sum, the last sentence, Mr. Riley suggested the school will make a payment of the settlement sum within 5 days of approval as required by Section 4 of this agreement. I believe your settlement agreement that's on there has a different, like by the end of November, there's
30th.
November 30th. So Mr. Riley's asking for those 2 minor changes to the settlement agreement. And then it's, like I
And you
said,
can cut that check out in 5 days easily enough?
I will have that check prepared and ready tomorrow morning. And then I'm going to contact Mr. Riley, let him know the result of the vote, have the check ready, and then I'm just going to give the check to Mr. Riley and have him handle the transaction.
And this is insurance money, folks.
Yeah, this is money from the fire. Finally?
Yes.
Finally.
Finally. So I'm looking for a motion to approve item 3D, a resolution authorizing a settlement agreement between Balfour and the payment of $800,000 to Balfour to resolve all outstanding issues between the district and Balfour, with 2 small caveats.
Yes.
Is there a motion?
Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
No problem. I motion to approve item 3D, a resolution authorizing a settlement agreement with Balfour and a payment of $800,000 to Balfour to resolve all outstanding issues between the district and Balfour.
With 2 small
With
caveats.
2 small.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 3D with 2 small caveats. Is there any discussion?
That this started out as being a $900,000.
$950,000.
$950,000.
So by the negotiations that we've done, we've been able to save the district quite a bit.
$50,000.
Yeah. So those are monies that could be put back into the construction fund. So you and Mr. Thompson could decide how those proceeds to be spent.
Great.
Question, why, I mean, it took a number of weeks for this to be negotiated. Why are they wanting a different date? I mean, why are they wanting a date previous to?
I think that's the date that Mr. Riley and Balfour actually talked and came to a resolution on the settlement.
Is it the date when they showed these 2 invoices to?
No, it's just nothing more than that's the date that those 2 parties agreed to settle.
Okay. But for the 800,000, not
For the
the.
800,000, yes.
There were a lot of numbers back and forth for 6 months.
For quite some time.
And our board meeting was before that date. So our board meeting was October 8th. This happened after
Yes.
that, so it had to wait. That's why he wants it. because we couldn't do it at.
We couldn't do it October 8th. In fact, Dr. Beal and I ran into Dave Riley at the OSBA conference and indicated to us that a settlement agreement was reached and that he would be forthcoming with a resolution settlement agreement.
Great. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes, motion's carried. Mr. Parkinson?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The next item for your consideration are purchase orders and blanket certificates. There is one purchase order for your consideration, and there are two that are now certificates for your consideration listed under this particular resolution. The next item for your consideration is the amendment to the 2019 Rsvp recipient agreement. The Rsvp program is a separate independent entity of the school district. Their funds flow through our books, and as such, the federal government asked the Board of Education to approve such agreements. Next is the 2019 HRA plan design. This is coming from our plan design administrator. These changes are being made with changes in law. Next item for your consideration are advance of funds. Excuse me. There are two advances for your consideration, one to the food service fund and one to the auxiliary services fund. Item I, a return of advances. There are 7 for your consideration. These are monies previously moved from the general fund to the respective funds, and now these funds are returning the monies back to the general fund. Item J is transferred to unclaimed funds. These two particular checks have not been claimed by the vendor, and by law we are required to move these monies from the general fund to the 007 fund. At such time, should the vendor request these monies, we will pay that from the unclaimed funds. If this vendor never responds within 5 years, those monies then get moved back to the general fund. Next item for your consideration is a transfer to close accounts. These accounts are no longer being used, and we are requesting that these monies and accounts be closed and moved to the appropriate areas. Item I, a transfer fund. This is to the Employee Termination Benefit Fund in the amount of $75,000. Item H are grant acceptances. There are 5 for your consideration. These are various state and federal grants that are being asked for and require your approval. Gifts and donations, there are 4 for your consideration. Various individuals and organizations have generously donated to the school district, and we are asking for your approval. Next item are student activity purpose goals and proposed budgets. There are 2 for your consideration. Student activity accounts, whenever they change a budget, they're required to come to the Board of Education for consideration. Next item, sale of surplus equipment. There are various items that we are proposing to sale publicly or for scrap, and those particular items are listed under item P. And those conclude my reports, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Item A has been covered, and item B under superintendent's reports, superintendent questions and answers. There were no questions presented at our last board meeting, so I have no answer. Item under nobody wants to hear them. And then item 5, the superintendent's resolutions. Item A is the modernization proposal for the central office elevator. We knew going into the project that we would have to replace the elevators, but we were able to save enough money throughout the project to be able to fund it. So we'll do 1 elevator, shut it, have 1 operational, then flip it. So they're safe, they passed inspection, but they're about 45 or 50 years old, and they are repaired almost monthly previous to our ownership of the building. So in pretty bad condition.
Looking for a motion to approve item 5A, elevator modernization proposal for the central office.
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion to approve item 5A, elevator modernization proposal for central office.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve 5A, elevator modernization proposal for central office. Is there any discussion? I just know that that construction worker was not happy coming out of that elevator, so I hope you guys are safe. What can I say?
It's a little bit of a scary ride right
There are
now.
nice steps, though, and you can get your workouts in, and, you know, always go up the steps and then slide down the elevator. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Beal,
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Item B for your consideration is renewal of the Lake County YMCA contract for our school-aged childcare, after-school, before-school programs.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal?
I move that we approve item 5B, Lake County YMCA contract renewal for school-aged childcare.
Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5B, Lake County YMCA contract renewal for school-aged childcare. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Abstain. Motion has carried. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Item C for your consideration is an agreement regarding provisions of nursing services for special needs students and throughout the school district.
Looking for a motion to approve item 5C, agreement regarding provision of nursing services.
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion to approve item 5C, agreement regarding provision of nursing services.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5C, agreement regarding provision of nursing services. Is there any discussion? Only thing I have to say is they do a heck of a good job in there, and it's very exciting what goes on in our district. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Dr. Beal,
Yes.
Mrs. Warner.
Yes, motion has carried. Mr. Thompson?
Item D for your consideration is the 2019-20 district calendar. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for getting that put together. Madam President, item E for your consideration is a parent-guardian transportation agreement that we use those when busing is unavailable. Item F for your consideration is adopting of about 5 million policies, and those are second read and adoption. And finally, item G for your, well, not finally, item G for your consideration is the personnel agenda. Of course, those folks are not officially hired until we receive satisfactory records from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and Identification, the Ohio Department of Education, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the become permanent employees. And finally, item H for your consideration within the personnel agenda is for a brass advisor.
Okay, and that one needs a special roll call. So we are looking for approval of item 4H, personnel agenda brass advisor. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones?
I motion to approve item 5H, personnel agenda brass advisor.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Thank you, Mrs. Zern.
I will second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the 5H, personnel agenda brass advisor. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Zern,
Yes.
Dr. Beal,
Abstain.
and Mrs. Warner.
Yes, motion has carried. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. We are now to meeting notification. The next meeting of this Board of Education is set for Monday, December 10th, 2018, 6 p.m. And that will be an executive session, so really won't start the meeting until, like we did tonight, at 7 at the Northern Career Institute East Lake campus. I'm looking for a motion to approve item 7A, the consent agenda.
Madam President,
Dr. Beal.
I move that we adopt 7A, adoption of consent calendar.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mr. Jones.
I second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes, motion has carried. Is there anyone from the press here before we adjourn to executive session? Don't believe so. So at this time, again, we're going to adjourn to executive session to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I make the motion, 8A, to adjourn to an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President, I second that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. It's been moved and seconded that we move to executive session at 8:05 p.m. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes. Thank you. Motion is carried. There will be no other business when we come back from executive session, so I don't know what's on TV, but there's something warm and cozy. You can read a good book or something. Do you need a signature before?
When will the minutes be posted?
Well, let's see. I get approval by tomorrow, and then I give Courtney my approval, so they're posted pretty quick, I think within...
The October minutes?
No, the minutes from today.
Usually pretty quick,
No.
Yeah, usually pretty quick.
but it's Thanksgiving.
But they have to be
they're draft.
approved.
Yeah, they'll be draft. They won't be final minutes. The Board of Education won't vote on these minutes until the December meeting. But I could send you a draft if you like.
Shoot.
She doesn't know it yet.